with you. Okay, let's gotta get this all set. What I'm talking about here is it's always the same old story with these guys. Okay, still trying to get off the smokes. It's been like 42 days and 17 hours and 13 minutes, and I'm still trying to quit. Always keep me handy, that helps. Got an epic story for you. I just sent one of the young women out to grab some lunch for me because I'm up to my neck here. So when she gets back with my lunch, I got an epic story to tell you. Oh, yikes. Anyways, oh, here she is right now. Okay, I'm gonna clear my table off here and I'm gonna start eating, and I got an amazing story for you. Okay, stay tuned. Okay, so the young lady went out and got me some Lee's chicken here. Oh wow, look at that, fantastic. Wow. Look at all that chicken goodness. Wow. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. They always give too many fries, but that's okay. Got some fries, 3 pieces of chicken. She picked me up a gravy and a biscuit like I asked her to. Okay, epic story. If you look at a map of Saskatchewan, the lower half, there's 3 cities. Saskatoon, Moose Jaw. Yeah, that's a real name. It's a lovely little town. And Regina, the capital city. Now, just south of Moose Jaw. I know it's got kind of a funny name, but if you Google it, it's really an awesome city. I've been there many times. And I want to say, I remember this story as a kid, because I grew up in Saskatchewan. It takes place around 1960. Now, I was too young at the time, but I remember my parents talking about this story. So about 20 miles south of Moose Jaw, there was a garage there. Repair shop, gas station, that type of thing. The guy who owned his name was Percy. Now, Percy had this garage, and he had a helper, another mechanic. It's a nice little garage. People would stop there for gas because it's like one of those places, you know, where you could, it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And they had a washroom that you know, a lot of people would stop, use the washroom. They sold postcards, road maps, cigarettes, you know, pop, that kind of thing, a few chocolate bars. They had, like I said, the one bay with the lift on it. They had a tow truck. Well-equipped little garage out in the middle of nowhere. And they did very well, a lot of business. You know, Percy would sometimes have to use a tow truck to go get somebody who ran out of gas or got a flat tire along the way. So of course he would do that. Now, he had a guy working for him named Norman Schmidt. Norman was a crackerjack mechanic. Unbelievable. He could fix anything. He was actually a farmer. Him and his wife Betty and their 2 sons, Glenn and Garth, had a farm. And it was a second generation farm. They were doing very well. So to give you you some background on Norman and Betty Schmidt. They had their second generation farm. They were doing very well. Come seeding and harvest, they would have to hire extra people, but they had a lot of land and they were able to run this farm. And by the time Glenn and Garth could reach the pedals of any machine, they were driving it. They'd drive the farm truck, combine, tractor, whatever. If they could reach the pedals, they were driving. Plus, before they went to school in the morning, they would, collect eggs, milk cows, slop the hogs, feed the chickens. And Betty did pretty much the same type of work. Now, like I said, from the time the boys were little, they were working. When they got to be about teenagers, and they were about maybe 2.5 years apart. I guess when Garth was about maybe, 15 and Glenn was about, 17, 18. I got a mixture. She told me she got me a mixture of orange crush and Dr. Pepper. It was interesting. So by the time the boys were a little bit older, Percy, the garage owner, decided he'd like to hire Norman as a mechanic. Norman thought, well, I could use a few extra bucks. And, during the year when I'm not harvesting or seeding, it's not that busy, I could work part-time, because there's nothing he couldn't fix. He could fix any kind of farm equipment, fix a disc on someone's plow, fix your car, truck, anything, any kind of machine or motor, generator, he could fix it. So anyways, Percy decided he wanted to hire him just on a part-time basis. Norman said sure, so he started working there as a part-time mechanic. So it just wasn't long, a few years later. He said, Norman, I'm thinking of retiring. Would you be interested in buying the garage off me? Now, Percy had another mechanic working for him, but he wasn't interested in buying it. He wasn't really, he wanted to work for somebody. He didn't want to have his own business. It was just too much for him. So Norman thought it over. He said, I'll go talk to Betty, see what she says. They talked it over. Like I said, Norman was a crackerjack mechanic. He fit right into that garage. He had been working there for a couple of years at that point. He thought this would be perfect opportunity. Farming was good, but when you have a few bad years, it kind of sets you back. Let's face it, farming's a bit of a gamble. That's just the way it is. So, Norm and Betty thought it over, and they thought, what? We sold the farm. We could keep a couple of sections, lease that out to other farmers. We'd still have that income coming in. Sell the farm, buy the gas station. Now the gas station came with a house. Quarter mile down the road. It was like right there, you could walk there within minutes. Big 3-story house, old. And that part of the province is quite flat, some rolling hills, but mostly flat. So Norm said, Betty, let's do it. So they sold the farm, bought the gas station, came with a house, everything, all the equipment, like I said, the tow truck, all that was included. Heck of a good deal. station to help out, taking care of the cash register, that sort of thing. And they no sooner bought the place than they were planning maybe a little diner or something. I don't know, do a little diner be perfect, they get a lot of traffic coming through. There's right on a busy highway, two-lane highway. So they thought, nice little diner, sell a few burgers and stuff. I mean, enough people stop to use the bathroom and get gas. Why not, right? Now, Garth started working there as well. Because like his dad, he was a crackerjack mechanic. Now, when it came to brothers, you've never seen two brothers so different your whole entire life. Glenn was an academic overachiever on the honor roll. He did very well academically, very sharp, very personable, played football. He wanted to study medicine. So as soon as he graduated high school, he was off to the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. He was going to study medicine. Garth, on the other hand, quite a bit different. Garth struggled academically. Socially awkward. He appeared to smile a lot for no apparent reason, and he read a lot of comic books, and he just nothing wrong with that, but he just didn't have a lot on the body. He kind of talked a slow drawl and stuttered a bit. But when it came to fixing things like his dad, he was very good with his hands. The word a lot of people used back then to describe him was, that's a terrible word. Back in those days, the word they would use to be retarded. Well, he was a bit of a, he's a little bit awkward, like socially awkward and whatever, but did very poor in school, but he certainly had his abilities. Now, one thing about Garth, he was a practical joker. He liked to play jokes, like to tease little kids, joke, and if you asked him to grab you a can of soda, he'd shake it up first before he handed it to you. He liked to put a rubber snake in his mother's laundry basket, if he finished working on a car, he'd take a rubber spider and stick it on the seat there, He liked his practical jokes. So when Glenn went off to school in Saskatoon, Garth stayed behind, worked at the garage. Now, the garage would close at about 5 o'clock, but the house was just down the road if somebody needed gas, Norman would gladly walk down there, pump some gas, help him out. Norm was a good guy, hard worker, good guy. His reputation for being a mechanic was so good that people would drive 20 miles south of Moose Jaw just to have him work on their vehicle. All the farmers in the neighborhood were in the area. Knew Norman, they knew his reputation. And people knew Garth and Glenn and Betty. Well, like family. So the garage would close at about 5. Garth quite often would He had all these tools there. He knew how to use them. He built a go-kart, Briggs and Stratton motor, welded the frame himself. First time he tried it out, went clear across the highway into a neighbor's farmer's fence. Right through the fence, hit the top rail, took his 2 teeth out. So he went around. Every time he smiled, which is pretty much all the time, there's 2 teeth missing. I've got a biscuit here. Love their biscuits. So good. Got an apple pie too. The young lady that ran and got this for me is working in the mailroom these days. They just started. That's pretty much where you start when you work here. So, like I said, I remember this story, hearing about it from my parents as a kid. So when I dug it out of the archives, I was more than happy to share it with you, because I got a lot more details by actually reading the initial report from the early 60s. So like I said, this story took place, I think it was around 1960. No, one evening, Garth is working by himself at the garage after closing hours. He's tinkering around, beautiful summer's evening. Glennsway University doing very well. On the dean's list. So, this grape is amazing. Garth is working at the garage. And he was looking at a comic book this one time. Where are these 2 guys? We're talking. The one guy said, "Here, have a seat." So the guy sits down, and the other guy rigged it up so when he sat on the seat, he got a shock. He jumped up and grabbed his ass, and Garth thought that was kind of funny. And he thought that'd make a pretty funny practical joke. So one night, he's there by himself, and he's thinking about this, how funny that would be, what a joke that would be. So he goes into the bathroom. Now the bathroom was just a small, stinking toilet, 40-watt bulb. It was actually an old aluminum toilet. So he thought about, wiring it up so if somebody sat down in there, they could have a heck of a good joke. A real practical joke, right? A real gag. So, sticks a couple wires on there, and he has a battery in behind the toilet with like a transformer or something to conduct the current to get it to flow. Hooks a couple wires out there and touches them, gets a good shock. Well, it definitely works, and he knew it would. But the wires were totally visible. Can't have that, right? So he drills a tiny hole about 1/8 of an inch on each side of the toilet seat. And then he takes a couple small little terminals, sticks them through there, hooks them up. Hooks the wires up. You can't even tell, because like I said, with the 40-watt bulb, it's kind of dark. apart because it just blends right in with the aluminum. The only thing is when you lift the toilet seat, which a lot of people do, I mean the men would all do that when they, urinate. You could see the wires, so he kind of pushed them along the side. Took some gray colored silicone type stuff. Just squirted that along there and concealed them. It was perfect. It worked great. And the battery, he turned it kind of sideways. You couldn't see it when you walked in. He couldn't wait for his dad or somebody to sit down there. Give him a real jolt, That'd get a few laughs. So next day, a few people go in there. They want to use the bathroom. It's mostly men. They just lift the seat. Nothing happens, That's fine. Next day, basically the same thing. Until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This car pulls up. This couple's on their way from Regina to Saskatoon. And they want to get some gas. Car pulls up. Norm comes out. He's wiping his hands like this, wiping the grease off. Can I help you? And the guy says, yeah, I need some gas. So Norm says, okay, starts pumping gas. A lady gets out of the passenger side, says, I got to use your bathroom real quick. She runs in there. She really had to go. So she goes in there. Sits down. Norm and this customer exchanging pleasantries. Norm finishes pumping the gas. Goes in and pays them as they're walking by the bathroom, and they hear this woman scream. Husband goes in there. She's standing there, with her pants down. She's, peed all over herself and the toilet and everything else. And she's furious. She said, when I sat down there, I got a shock. And Norm said, what are you talking about? I sat on that toilet seat and I got wet now. The minute I sat down, I got a jolt. The husband's looking kind of bewildered. And Norm's saying, what the heck? So he goes in there and he's looking and looks behind there and he sees the battery. And he's thinking, okay. He knew who did it. He calls Garth in there. Says, Garth, get in here. Garth comes in kind of grinning from ear to ear. And he says, this lady just sat in that door and got one hell of a shock. What's going on? And Garth starts laughing, thinking everyone's going to erupt in laughter any minute, right? And sharing his humor. But they didn't. Nobody thought it was funny. This couple are furious. Norm says, don't worry about the gas, just, call it square. They drive off. Norman actually just took his hand and cuffed Garth across the back of the head. No. Even though Garth was a big, strong boy, he's no match for Norman. Norman was a tough guy. He could have probably taken on both his boys at the same time. They didn't dare hit him back. So, he tells him to unhook that thing right now. So he disconnects the wiring. In the meantime, this young woman is furious and humiliated and everything else. She is beside herself. They stop in Moose Jaw at the police station. And they go in and they file a complaint. Now, the cop, when he hears about this, says, He knows. He knows Garth, and he's kind of trying to keep a straight face. And, funny enough, when people would tell this story years later, including my parents, some people kind of chuckle at it, It's kind of hard not to kind of get a bit of a chuckle out of it when you first hear it. So they filed a complaint. It was official. The desk sergeant signed it. They were on their way to Saskatoon. The next day, the desk sergeant drives down to the gas station. Has a word with Norm, so that couple was not very happy. You got a good reputation, Norman, try not to screw it up. He said, you better rein in that kid of yours. Got some gravy on my tie. So, kind of blows over. So the young couple, when they get to Saskatoon, she's been seeing a doctor quite a bit lately, on a regular basis. Because she's pregnant. This one morning she wakes up and things just don't seem right. Now this is a young couple trying to have their first child. She had miscarried the first time, but it was very early in the pregnancy. At this point, she was already a few months along. Things were looking great. Until that morning. She phones the doctor and says, meet me at the emergency. So she goes there. Sure enough, she's miscarried. Baby's gone, they lost it. The woman just breaks down, she's almost hysterical. She tells her doctor about the incident in the toilet. And he's very concerned. Because up till now, everything looked like she'd be carrying it till full term, right? There's no reason not to think that. Everything was fine until then. Wow, look at that skin. That's pure, unadulterated chicken skin from Lee's. So, the young couple get themselves a lawyer. And the lawyer says, well, what does the doctor say? I'd like to have a medical report. They get a medical report. The doctor says it very well could have caused a miscarriage. Lawyer says, well, what proof do you have this actually happened? They filed a police report. Says, perfect. They do a discovery, interview some witnesses, including the desk sergeant, who admits that it all happened. He went down there and talked to Norman and, had a word with him about it. So it goes to court. Now, the day they're going to court, Norman, a few days or a couple weeks earlier, actually had an architect draw up a plan for this little diner he wanted to build. The architect dropped it off this big long tube, opens it up. There's this beautiful plan for this little dining room, this little diner that'd be attached to his restaurant. It's just so exciting. So they go to court. friends called witnesses for Garth, like some of his old teachers, saying that, he didn't always know right from wrong and this kind of stuff. And he was a good kid and whatever. No, they couldn't really charge anybody with manslaughter, but they managed to sue for damages. And whether the woman actually miscarried from the incident, they don't really know, but the judge sided with the young couple. And he awarded them $110,000. Back then, that'd be like about $1 million now or more. Norm and Betty were devastated. Absolutely devastated. They couldn't believe that this was happening. It just all unraveled so quickly. Because of a stupid prank, how could this happen? Well, it did. Garth did something real stupid, and the whole family's going to pay for it. When Norm got back to the garage, he picked up that tube with the plans in it and just chucked them in the garbage. He knew his diner would never be built. He was going to lose everything. Now by this time, Glenn was almost finished school, and he's going to go to Edmonton, Alberta, to be an intern in a hospital there. His future was looking pretty rosy. So, they had to sell the garage. They no longer had the house that it came with. The few sections of land that they had to sell that off. By the time they paid off what they owed plus their legal fees, they still owed money. So they moved to Regina. The three of them. Norm got a job in a garage pretty much immediately because he had connections and he was well liked and well known. And a heck of a good mechanic, like I said. Betty got a job working in retail. They got themselves an apartment. Garth wanted to work at the garage, but the owner didn't want to hire him because of what had happened. So Garth went to work, washing dishes in a restaurant. Now I'll say one thing about Garth. He would never miss a shift, ever. He would never miss a shift. I was kind of sad that because of Garth's actions, because Norman owned the gas station, he had to assume responsibility. And he lost everything. And it's really unfortunate that happened. Now, they slowly paying off their debt. It was taking a while, but they're getting it done slowly. So after about 5 years of, I guess about 5 years went by. One day Norm is working on a car. He's got his hands up like this, underneath the car working on it. He doesn't feel quite right. He feels kind of dizzy and tired, sweaty. So he finishes his shift, goes home. Betty's just cooking. Danny says, I want to lie down on the couch for a while. He said, I'm not feeling all that great. He lies down. By then he's still sweating. He's just not feeling good. And just, kind of starting to get kind of nauseous. So he gets up, goes into the bathroom, sits down on the toilet, and has a heart attack and just dies right there sitting on the toilet. The irony of it all, right? So, Norman is dead. Don't even think he was 60 years old. Barely, if he was. So, of course, Betty is all alone with Garth. The oldest boy is now a doctor. Glenn is now a doctor in Edmonton. Goes home practice, doing very well. Married. Got a kid on the way. He's doing good. So they continue living in Regina. Glenn and his wife and the little baby would come up and visit them. Every year, Christmas, that kind of thing. So, a few years after that, but another 5 years later, Garth is now in his early 30s, somewhere around there. He's down at the river fishing. Got his hip waders on. There's a few guys down there. They're all sort of bantering back and forth and casting their lines. And Garth starts walking a little bit deeper and he slips and goes over. Tries to get up, but next thing you know, his hip waders is filling up with water. He can't get up, it's just too much weight. The river's running pretty fast. A couple other guys see what's happening. They're trying to run over there as fast as they can, but they're wearing hip waders as well. He was starting to float away. One guy grabbed him. They got him on shore. By then it was too late. He had way too much water in his lungs. And he died right there. So Betty's all alone. So Glenn says, Mom, you're moving out here to Edmonton. I'm not going to let you stay all alone. You're moving out here to Edmonton. I love those crispy bits. We had a big house with a basement suite. Nice suite in the basement. She moved in there. It was perfect. She would say later some of the best years of her life were the years she lived there. She lived well into her 80s. By then they had 3 kids. She was babysitting the 3 kids all the time. She got along very well with Glenn's wife and his family. She had a really good life. Despite everything that happened. Her last remaining years were very well. She was very happy. Well, like I said, even when my parents would talk about this story, because we used to drive by the old garage. My dad said, there used to be a garage there, which is this old, like the farmhouse is all dilapidated at that point. And the garage, like a quarter mile up the road, was pretty much gone. You could see all the cement and the pavement and everything where it used to be, but it was gone. And then you would tell the story about what happened. Kind of sad. You know, a stupid incident like that. Not sure what happened to the young couple that lost the baby. Don't know ever. Not sure what happened to them. One would hope they had some kids eventually. This is probably one of the first times I finished all the French fries. But poor Norman. Doing so well. You know, they could have built a diner. I mean, people stop there all the time, you know. The gas station was not out of the way. It was in the middle of nowhere, but certainly not. I mean, it was right on the, the main highway. And that's unfortunate. Just goes to show that sometimes you think something's going to be funny. And I guess it has the potential to be funny. But sometimes it can really go wrong. You know, in this case it did. But like I said, people always get a bit of a chuckle when they talk about that story. Except when you got the part where the lady lost her baby, then it wasn't funny, but it's really quite sad. But it's funny how two brothers could be so different. Well, my lunch break is just about about over. Gotta get back to work. I got a lot of work here. Guess I better clean my mess and get back to my computer. Got a lot of editing to go through. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Hope you look after yourselves and, each other. Stay amazing in the land of awesome. And if you're going to play a practical joke, make sure no one gets hurt.